Okay, think about your absolute favorite song. Got it? Now, what if you could only hear it once? Ever. The second it was over, poof, gone forever.
This isn't just some weird what-if scenario. For most of human history, that was the reality. Sound was just fleeting, a ghost in the air, a song, a speech, a laugh. It happened, and then it was just gone. The only thing left was the memory of it. So, the big question is, how did we go from sound being this temporary, ghostly thing, to today, where you've got literally billions of songs in your pocket? Well, that's the incredible journey we're going to take, from a ghost to a gigabyte.
All right, so our story starts with the first and maybe the biggest hurdle. Before you can even think about playing a sound back, you got to figure out a way to catch it in the first place. So our first chapter is all about that, capturing a ghost.
So let's meet the phonograph. Back in 1857, this guy, Adelion Scott de Martinville, came up with the very first device that could record sound from the air. Pretty amazing, right? But here's the twist. It couldn't play it back, at all. It was basically like taking a photograph of a sound, but having no way to actually hear it.
And the way it worked was just wild. A little needle, a stylus, would vibrate and literally scratch out the shape of the sound waves onto a piece of paper blackened with smoke. The whole point wasn't for listening or for fun. It was pure science. People wanted to see sound for the very first time. And with this, they could.
Okay, so seeing sound, that was a huge step forward, a monumental leap for sure. But the real game changer was still on the horizon. We'd managed to trap the ghost on paper, but now, how do we make it talk? That brings us to part 2, the first playback.
Fast forward 20 years to 1877, and this is where a name you definitely know comes in. Thomas Edison. His invention, the phonograph, was the absolute breakthrough because this machine didn't just record the sound, it could reproduce it, it could bring it back. For the first time in all of human history, you could hear a moment again. And you know what happens when there's a new invention, right? Competition. And just like that, we get the very first format war. It was Edison's cylinder against Emil Berliner's flat disc. And honestly, when you look at the chart, it's kind of a no-brainer. The disc, way easier to make copies of. Much easier to store since it was flat. And it was louder. So yeah, the winner was pretty clear. And the disc format, the record, took over for a very, very long time.
All right, so we've got a practical way to record and play back sound. Problem solved, right? Well, not quite. A new problem popped up. The sound quality was kind of terrible. It was really thin and weak and had that classic tinny sound. The next big leap had to be a move away from those big acoustic horns and into the world of electricity, from horns to wires. See, the whole issue was with how they were recording. They used these big horns to basically funnel sound down to a needle. It just wasn't sensitive enough to capture the full range of sound. It couldn't pick up the really low bass notes or the super high frequencies. And that right there, that's the reason why all those old recordings have that specific, thin, tinny sound we all recognize. Then the 1920s hit, and everything changed with the electrical revolution. Suddenly, you've got the microphone, which turns sound into an electrical signal. And then you've got the amplifier, which can take that weak signal and make it way stronger. The result of these two things together? A huge jump in quality. All of a sudden, recordings sounded so much clearer, richer, and just bigger. Okay, so let's recap. We can capture sound. We can make it sound good. But the recording process itself was still super rigid, like high-stakes rigid. The next big thing wasn't just about the tech. It was about unlocking creativity. And it all came down to the magic of tape. Seriously, try to picture this. You're a musician in a studio. The whole band is crowded around one microphone, and you're recording straight to the master disc. If somebody messes up a note or even just coughs, that's it. The whole thing is trashed. You got to start all over again from the top. No do-overs. The pressure must have been insane. And this is why magnetic tape was such a revolution. It wasn't just a new way to record. It was a whole new way to create. Mess up? No big deal. Just rewind the tape and record right over it. But here's the really cool part. You could literally take a razor blade, cut the tape, and splice together the best parts from different performances. You could even layer new sounds on top of old ones through overdubbing.
This new level of freedom completely blew the doors open for artists. It's how we got the mind-bending studio sounds of the 60s, and it's the foundation for how pop music is still made today. It changed everything. And all this amazing new freedom in the studio, it led to an explosion of new ways for us to listen at home. The high-quality master tapes they were making led to the LP record in '48. Then, in the 60s, the cassette tape brought that same technology right into our living rooms and cars. And the final piece of the puzzle, 1979, the Sony Walkman. For the very first time, you could take your music with you. It was personal, it was portable, it was a total game changer. But here's the thing. Every single one of these formats, I mean all of them, from the first cylinders to vinyl LPs to cassette tapes, they all had the same weakness, a fatal flaw, really. And that brings us to the final revolution, our move into a world of zeros and ones. And that flaw is something called degradation. Think about it. A vinyl record is literally a physical groove in a piece of plastic. A cassette is a strip of magnetic stuff. Every single time you play them, a needle or a tape head physically rubs against the surface, and it wears down, just a tiny little bit. And if you tried to make a copy of a copy, well, the quality just got worse and worse with each step. So the solution was brilliant. Instead of trying to make a physical copy of the sound, what if you could just copy the instructions on how to make the sound? And that's exactly what digital recording is. It takes that analog sound wave and translates it into a string of numbers, a binary code of just zeros and ones. Here's the easiest way to think about it. An analog recording is like a photograph. If you take a picture of that photograph, it's never going to be quite as sharp. A copy of a copy gets even fuzzier. But a digital recording, that's more like a blueprint. You can give that blueprint to a million different builders and they'll all build the exact same perfect house, every single time. The numbers don't fade, the instructions are always perfect. And the moment this idea changed the world for consumers was 1982. That's the year the compact disc, the CD, arrived, and it made two incredible promises. The sound would be perfect, and it would stay perfect forever. And you could make infinite perfect copies. Just like that, the problem of degradation was solved. So let's just pause for a second and look back at this whole journey. It's pretty incredible, right? And it makes you wonder, what's next? I mean, we started with a wavy line on a piece of smoky paper that you couldn't even listen to. And from there, we went through every stage, solving these huge problems one at a time. First, just how to capture sound at all. Then, how to make it sound good. After that, how to get creative with it. And finally, how to make it last forever. And all of that brings us right here to today. That entire history, all those solutions to capture quality, flexibility, and permanence, it all lives inside the little phone in your pocket. We've done it. We've captured sound, we've perfected it, and we've made it completely personal. So that leaves just one big, fascinating question. Now that we've solved all of those problems, what's the next one?